At 8:08:15 UTC this morning, while Israel was launching its newest extensive wave of strikes on Tehran and CENTCOM was announcing 6,000 targets destroyed in Iran, Iranian state television broadcast something that had nothing to do with missiles, air defenses, or military operations. A 90-second segment. No explosions, no battlefield footage. Just a single Iranian intelligence official holding a black binder, reading 6 names, 4 dates, and 3 locations, all connected to Jeffrey Epstein's operation, and then saying 11 words in English directly into the camera. President Trump, we have the complete files. Call us. Within 40 minutes, 3 separate White House sources contacted Washington correspondents with the same message. The National Security Council had entered an emergency session that was not about Iran's missiles, not about the Strait of Hormuz, and not about Hezbollah's 200 rocket barrage from last night. It was about what Iran's Ministry of Intelligence just broadcast to 400 million viewers worldwide. This is Ops Room. This is the story nobody in Washington wants you to hear. Section 1. What Iran claims to have and how they got it. To understand what just happened, you need to understand what Epstein files actually exist, because this isn't speculation. These files are real, documented, and have been the subject of federal court proceedings, FBI evidence logs, and congressional inquiries. When the FBI raided Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan townhouse on July 6, 2019, agents seized an extraordinary volume of material. According to the Southern District of New York's evidence inventory, partially unsealed in court filings, the seizure included thousands of photographs, compact discs labeled with names and dates, personal journals with contact records, flight logs from 4 aircraft, property access records from residences in Manhattan, Palm Beach, New Mexico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Paris, and, most critically, surveillance recordings from cameras installed throughout Epstein's properties. Epstein's former house manager, Juan Alessi, testified under oath that cameras were positioned in every bedroom, bathroom, and common area of the Palm Beach residence. Former associate Maria Farmer stated in sworn declarations that Epstein told her the cameras were connected to recording systems. Former contractor Steve Scully testified about wiring surveillance equipment into multiple Epstein properties. The FBI's evidence catalog from the Manhattan raid alone, case number 19CR490, runs to over 50 pages. The material was transferred to FBI's Manhattan Field Office Evidence Facility. Additional materials were held at FBI Washington Field Office and at Department of Justice Secure Storage. Now, how does Iran claim to have accessed these files? Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS, operates one of the most capable cyber espionage programs in the world. The APT-35 group, known as Charming Kitten, has specifically targeted U.S. Department of Justice networks since at least 2017. Microsoft's Threat Intelligence Center documented APT-35 intrusion attempts against DOJ email systems in 2019, the same year the Epstein evidence was seized and cataloged. But cyber theft isn't the only pathway. MOIS also operates human intelligence networks. In January 2023, the FBI arrested an Iranian American in the Pentagon, a DoD contractor with security clearance, for passing classified defense information to Iranian intelligence over a 5-year period. If Iran can recruit assets inside the Pentagon, recruiting an asset inside an FBI evidence facility is not operationally different. A third pathway: intermediaries. Epstein's network spanned multiple countries. Ghislaine Maxwell maintained contacts across European and Middle Eastern intelligence circles. Epstein himself visited Saudi Arabia, UAE, and maintained financial relationships across the Gulf. Material that passed through international hands, copies of recordings, photographs shared between Epstein's associates, digital files backed up on overseas servers, could have reached Iranian intelligence through third-party collection without ever directly penetrating FBI systems. Iran has not specified how they obtained the material. They've simply demonstrated that they have it, by reading names, dates, and locations that correspond to sealed court records that have never been publicly released. If those details match sealed filings, and Washington's panicked reaction suggests they do, then Iran possesses authentic material regardless of how they obtained it. Section 2. The 6 names and why Washington went silent. The Iranian broadcast named 6 individuals. We cannot independently verify or repeat all 6 names because the associated court records remain sealed under federal protective orders. What we can report, the Iranian official explicitly stated that the names include senior members of the current American government and individuals with direct influence over the war against Iran. Within the intelligence community, the reaction was immediate and telling. At 08:55 UTC, 40 minutes after the Iranian broadcast, the White House Communications Office issued an unusual directive to all executive branch agencies. No official statements regarding the Iranian broadcast. No confirmation, no denial, no "this is propaganda," nothing. That silence is itself the most significant signal. When Iran makes false claims, which it does regularly, the White House response is immediate, aggressive, and dismissive. Iranian propaganda. Fabricated nonsense. Desperate regime spreading lies. The standard playbook. Within minutes, not hours. This time, silence. 3 hours of complete silence before the press secretary's only statement. We do not comment on foreign intelligence operations or propaganda efforts. That specific phrasing, foreign intelligence operations, is language reserved for situations where classified equities are involved. You don't call something an intelligence operation if it's just propaganda. You call it propaganda. The word choice tells professionals everything they need to know. Meanwhile, today's war developments continued without pause, creating a surreal split-screen reality. Israel announced its extensive wave of strikes on Tehran. CENTCOM confirmed 6,000 targets struck since operations began. An Iranian ballistic missile hit Zarzir in northern Israel, wounding 58 people. Saudi Arabia shot down 50 drones. A French soldier became the first NATO combat fatality. The first KC-135 tanker aircraft was lost in western Iraq. A container ship was hit 35 nautical miles from Dubai. Iraq suspended all oil terminal operations after Iran set 2 tankers on fire. All of that happened today, March 13th, and none of it triggered an emergency NSC session. The EPSTEIN broadcast did. Section 3. The strategic weapon, compromise in wartime. Intelligence agencies have used compromising personal material as a strategic weapon for as long as intelligence agencies have existed. The KGB called it compromat. The CIA calls it leverage development. The British SIS calls it influence material. The operational principle is identical across every service. If you possess information that would destroy a leader's career, reputation, or freedom, you possess influence over that leader's decisions. The Soviet KGB maintained an entire directorate, Department 14 of the First Chief Directorate, dedicated to collecting and deploying compromising material against foreign leaders. British Prime Minister Edward Heath, German Chancellor Willy Brandt's aide Günther Guillaume, and multiple U.S. congressional figures were targeted with varying degrees of success throughout the Cold War. But those were peacetime operations designed for gradual influence. What Iran just did is qualitatively different. Iran deployed compromat during an active war against the leader directing that war. This isn't about influencing a trade policy or a diplomatic vote. This is about influencing military decisions that are killing Iranian citizens at a rate of 1,200 in 2 weeks. The strategic logic from Iran's perspective is devastating in its simplicity. Trump has demanded Iran's unconditional surrender. He stated today that defeating Iran's evil empire takes priority over oil prices. His administration is prosecuting the most intensive aerial bombardment since Iraq 2003, 6,000 targets in 13 days. There is no diplomatic off-ramp being offered. Every signal from Washington says, this war continues until Iran breaks. Now introduce the Epstein files. Iran's message isn't subtle. We have material that could end your presidency, your freedom, and your legacy. We're willing to negotiate. Are you? This creates an impossible decision matrix for any wartime leader. Option 1. Ignore the threat. Continue the war. Risk Iran releasing the files publicly, to international media, to congressional opponents, to the International Criminal Court, to domestic political adversaries. If the material is what Iran implies it is, public release could trigger impeachment proceedings, criminal referrals, and political destruction, all while trying to manage a multi-front war across 6 countries. Option 2. Negotiate. Accept Iran's implicit offer. Some form of de-escalation, a ceasefire, modified war aims, in exchange for the files remaining private. This achieves Iran's strategic objective, ending or reducing the military campaign, but creates permanent blackmail vulnerability. Iran would retain copies. The leverage never expires. Every future decision regarding Iran would be made under the shadow of potential release. Option 3. Escalate. Treat the broadcast as an act of information warfare and respond with increased military pressure. Accelerate strikes, expand targets, demonstrate that blackmail attempts produce more punishment, not less. This is the most aggressive response, but carries the risk that Iran responds by actually releasing the material, rather than just threatening to. Today's war data suggests Option 3 may already be underway. Israel's announcement of an extensive wave of Tehran strikes came after the Epstein broadcast. The timing could be coincidental, or it could be the first military response to the intelligence threat. Hit them harder to show that blackmail doesn't work. But hitting harder doesn't make the files disappear. Section 4. Today's battlefield. The war. Iran is fighting while playing this card. The Epstein play isn't happening in isolation. It's one weapon in a multi-domain campaign Iran is waging simultaneously. Military, naval, proxy, economic, diplomatic, and intelligence, all on the same day. Military front. Iran's new supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei issued his first operational directive today, demanding all bases hosting U.S. forces in the region close or attacks continue. This isn't rhetoric. Today's data confirms it's being executed. 31 separate drone and rocket attacks against U.S. positions in Iraq in the last 24 hours. 6 French soldiers wounded at Malakara base in Iraqi Kurdistan. 1 later died, making France the first NATO nation to suffer a combat fatality. An Italian base in Erbil was also struck. Iran is deliberately widening the war to hit NATO allies, not just American forces. Naval front. The Pentagon made an extraordinary admission today. It significantly underestimated Iran's willingness to close the Strait of Hormuz when planning Epic Fury. This represents a catastrophic intelligence failure. The strait is now effectively closed to non-Iranian and non-Chinese shipping. Iran attacked 2 oil tankers off Iraq's coast today, setting both on fire. Iraq has suspended all oil terminal operations. Oil prices have surged past $100 per barrel, up from $65 before the war. The IEA calls it the largest supply disruption in oil market history, 8 million barrels per day offline. Proxy front. Hezbollah launched 200 rockets into Israel overnight, the largest single barrage of the war. The IRGC coordinated a simultaneous ballistic missile attack, with one missile striking just hundreds of meters from Jerusalem's Old City, near the Western Wall, Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Israel has suspended prayer at all holy sites in Jerusalem. The symbolic impact of a missile landing next to the 3 holiest sites in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity is incalculable. Diplomatic front. While Mojtaba escalates, Iran's President Pezeshkian simultaneously laid out peace terms, recognition of Iran's rights, reparations, and guarantees against future aggression. This dual-track approach, military escalation plus diplomatic signaling, is textbook Iranian strategy. Fight and negotiate simultaneously, using battlefield pressure to improve negotiating position. And now the intelligence front, the Epstein broadcast. One more axis of pressure aimed directly at the personal vulnerabilities of the man making every decision about this war. 5 simultaneous fronts: military, naval, proxy, diplomatic, intelligence, all coordinated, all on the same day. This is the ring of fire strategy at its most complete, surrounding your adversary not just geographically, but across every domain of conflict simultaneously. And the genius of the Epstein play is its timing. Iran releases it on day 13, when the war is going badly for Iran militarily. 6,000 targets destroyed, 200+ civilians dead, but the strategic costs to America are mounting. First NATO casualty, Hormuz closed, oil crisis, 100+ crude, Gulf allies under drone attack. Iran releases the compromise at the exact moment when offering Trump a personal reason to de-escalate aligns with the strategic reality that the war is becoming unsustainable for both sides. Section 5. What happens next? 3 developments to watch in the next 72 hours. First, does Iran release actual material or keep threatening? Today's broadcast showed names and dates, but no photographs, no recordings, no documents on screen. That's deliberate. Releasing the threat without releasing the proof gives Trump a window to respond privately through back channels. If Iran wanted maximum damage, they would have aired everything. They didn't. That suggests the broadcast is an invitation to negotiate, not an attack. Yet. Second, congressional reaction. Multiple members of Congress have demanded access to sealed Epstein court records for years. Today's Iranian broadcast, if its details match sealed filings, proves that a foreign adversary has material that the American public and Congress have been denied. The pressure to unseal all remaining Epstein records will become overwhelming. If those records contain material related to the sitting commander-in-chief during wartime, the constitutional crisis implications are unprecedented. Third, does war strategy change? Watch for subtle shifts, a reduction in strike tempo, a change in target selection, a quiet diplomatic contact through Oman or Switzerland. If Trump's war decisions begin deviating from military recommendations without operational justification, that deviation itself becomes evidence that the compromise is influencing command decisions. The Joint Chiefs will be watching, Congress will be watching, and Iran will be watching most closely of all. The most dangerous aspect of the entire situation, even if the files contain nothing criminal, even if Trump's Epstein connection is limited to the publicly known social acquaintance, the perception of compromise influence poisons every decision. Every ceasefire becomes suspicious. Every de-escalation becomes questionable. The files don't have to prove guilt. They just have to create doubt. And doubt in a commander-in-chief during wartime is itself a weapon of mass destruction. Outro. 6,000 targets destroyed. 1,200 Iranians dead. A French soldier killed. Hormuz closed. Oil at $100. Hezbollah firing 200 rockets. A missile landing next to Al-Aqsa Mosque. And in the middle of all of it, Iran played its most dangerous card. Not a missile. Not a drone. A black binder with 6 names that made the White House go completely silent. Missiles destroy buildings. Compromise destroys leaders. And right now, Iran is aiming both at the same target. This is War Clock. Subscribe. Bell. Now. Comment. Is this real leverage or an Iranian bluff? Share this, because what happens next depends on what's in those files. Sources in description. Stay sharp. Stay informed. Ops Room out.